We are recording.
Okay, great. Well, the name of this session is Karuta, a Sakai ePortfolio for learning, assessment, reporting, and showcasing, which is pretty much all the things you'd want a portfolio to do. We're going to start with an introduction to the Karuta project and then look at an example of a portfolio for learning, assessment, and reporting, an example of another portfolio for showcasing. And then at the end, we'll do a live demo of Karuta. And there you see a picture of me and Jacques. So what is an ePortfolio? Well, it's many things to many people. It's a collection of artifacts about learning. It's a place to reflect on one's learning. It's a way to manage your virtual identity. It's a way to assess learning and improve teaching. It's a way to showcase individual skills and accomplishments. Portfolio processes link different actors within the university context. Students upload, reflect, and document on evidence of their learning. Instructors guide that process. Evaluators rate the evidence using rubrics. Administrators capture the data, and institutions, programs, and instructors reflect upon the data as a way of improving the learning process. In Sakai, once upon a time, we had something called the open source portfolio or OSP tools that were part of Sakai from pretty much its inception. But OSP was retired, and at the time that we heard of the retirement, we began a portfolio visioning process in the Sakai community. The institution HEC Montréal, which is a business school in Montreal, participated in that process, and out of that visioning, they created Karuta in the spirit of OSP. So Karuta is a next-generation open-source ePortfolio under the umbrella of the Apereo Foundation. In fact, we graduated from Apereo Incubation in October 2015. We have multiple partners in Canada at HEC Montréal, in Japan at Kyoto University, in France at IUT2 Grenoble, and there are 2 commercial affiliates associated, ePortfolium and Three Canoes LLC. We released our first version of the full-fledged Karuta in September 2014, and we're about to release Karuta 2.2 this fall. Karuta can be integrated with Sakai. LTI integration allows users to sign into Sakai and select the ePortfolio's tool for a single sign-on. The ePortfolio's tool can be used at the course, the program, or the institutional level. And users, when they sign in to Sakai, will see only the portfolios they own or the ones that have been shared with them. The users will be logged into those portfolios in the correct role, perhaps as a student or an evaluator or an administrator or an instructor. As I mentioned, Karuta is used around the world at HEC Montréal for a dance project in Quebec, in France at IUT2 Grenoble, in Japan in 2 innovative graduate programs, and newly in New Brunswick, New Jersey, for the New Brunswick Theological Seminary, and that is the implementation I'm going to be showing you today. We have many more pilots in process and an RFP in process from the French Ministry of Education. Karuta is really hot in France right now. Here's a picture of the Karuta team at one of our meetings in Montreal. Karuta is about the learning process. Learning portfolios focus on developing academic, professional knowledge, skills, and identity. Assessment portfolios take that data and focus on the improvement of programs and institutions. Showcase portfolios take that data and share it with attractive displays so that it can be used for the job search or other professional activities. And these purposes differ dramatically across institutions, requiring a very flexible solution to answer the needs at your institution. Karuta has the flexibility to organize different types of resources, text, documents, rubrics, comments, etc., according to a workflow for different users. And the prototyping process for Karuta adds to its flexibility for your institution. Karuta centers around an individual called the Karuta designer, someone identified at your university who will help develop the process, customize Karuta for your purposes. To create templates or use templates from other institutions for use by students and instructors, and develop them into a prototype pilot so that you know that the process you've implemented is going to work for your population. And finally, to move it into production where everyone gets a copy of their own Karuta portfolio according to your prototype. The technical specs of Karuta include jQuery JavaScript on the front end, REST APIs, Java and MySQL or Oracle on the back end. And we mentioned the IMS LTI integration with Sakai or with other LMSs. Karuta has responsive design for working well on all types of devices and built-in capabilities to get your content out. That's been one of the problems with proprietary portfolios. You can't take the content with you if you decide to go elsewhere. I'm going to run through a quick process for designers of building Karuta in 10 easy steps. Here we see a login page for Karuta. The first step is to customize the welcome page. There's a config file in the new release that allows you to easily switch out colors, photos, and design to make your home page look like your institution. The second would be to design the structure of your portfolio. Here is the basis of a institution that wants to use the AAC and U learning outcomes like written communication and teamwork and collaboration to put together an evidence submission process with teacher evaluation included. Then you add resources. These are the items that students would be encouraged to add to their portfolio content, or that you as designer would use to supply instructions or other content within the portfolio process. Next, you add semantic tags. This sets up the reporting structure for Karuta. So every item has a tag, and when you do reports or dashboards or other ways of aggregating data for individuals or across individuals, these tags set up the process of collecting that data. Then you set roles and actions so that you know who is allowed to do what. Students may add content, may edit it, may delete it, may submit it. Instructors may evaluate it, or outside evaluators might evaluate it. Designers may have permission to do certain things. Administrators may run reports. There are many different ways to differentiate who can do what. Next would be to create rubrics and their components. Here's a very simple rubric using smiley emoticons, smiley happy, smiley neutral, smiley sad, so that students could do a very quick and dirty self-evaluation. This is a very strong feature of Karuta in that you can embed any rubric that you are using with a relatively simple process of setting it up. Here's an alternative looking rubric where it's matrix-like with a grid. So you see there are 6 criteria within this particular rubric, and each criteria has 4 levels with descriptors for 4 levels. So the instructor could run through this, click, 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 and be done with the evaluation of a particular student piece of work. Next would be to create menus. Menus allow you to create something once and use it many times. They also might allow students to move content between portfolios to show off things used for assessment in a more showcasing environment. And then build dashboards and reports. And remember, I mentioned the semantic tags that would allow you to capture data within this particular student work for a dashboard or across students for a report. And here's another example of what a dashboard might look like. So a student might see that for different learning objectives, and different criteria for each objective, they have reached different levels of the descriptors for the levels, according to instructors or possibly according to self-evaluation or both. Finally, test your portfolio model in a small pilot. Often we designers think that we know everything about how our students and our different actors will act, but testing it out in a small scenario to see how people use it is a very good idea. And finally, run your project as a standalone Karuta or using LTI to integrate it with Sakai. Optionally, you can also integrate a social network. ELG is a social network that happens in different languages. Here you're seeing the French version. ELG can be integrated with Karuta. And in fact, the people in Grenoble are saying the students like that the very best about Karuta, that the social network allows them to interact about their portfolio with their peers. And by the way, Karuta is multilingual. You can implement it in almost any language. We've implemented it in Japanese, in French, and English. And you can also make it bilingual so that students could toggle between different languages according to which language they wish to use. So I promised you a specific implementation. This is the one at the LAMP Consortium, and it's been implemented by New Brunswick Theological Seminary. The LAMP Consortium has led the way for Karuta implementations in the US. New Brunswick NBTS was the first to implement Karuta, and they've graciously allowed us to see their implementation. They have linked Karuta to Sakai with LTI integration, and their choice was to have the ePortfolios tool show up in all of the courses at NBTS. So the NBTS Karuta implementation is only one of many, many, many ways to implement Karuta. So keep that in mind. This is just an example of what you could do, but you could do it your way, and that could be very different. We'll learn a bit about this implementation by previewing the training package in the next couple slides. So students log into Sakai, they go to any course site, they click the ePortfolios tool, and they're logged in according to their assigned role in each portfolio. They can then open any portfolio in that assigned role. They can get out of that portfolio and go to a different portfolio and log into that one. They can navigate within the portfolio using a refresh button, a stack bar, and a left-hand menu that opens different pages in the portfolio. Accessing sections is accomplished using a plus and a minus button for expanding and collapsing them, and then clicking on the label to open that section. So the students at NBTS have a relatively simple task. They have for each of their 3 graduate programs, so each student is only one program. They have up to 9 learning outcomes, and at the end of each semester, or perhaps each year, they're being asked to upload artifacts that represent their progress on each of the learning outcomes. Do a self-evaluation of their progress on that outcome, and then document and reflect upon that artifact that they have uploaded. They can upload as many artifacts as they wish. Instructors would then evaluate according to the rubrics assigned to each outcome. 2 internal instructors will evaluate, and 1 external outsourced instructor evaluates. These are the instructions for the students. Start with an initial self-evaluation. Select evidence of your learning in relation to the outcome in the form of uploaded documents, images or URLs, or videos or text. Document their evidence. How and why did you develop it? Reflect upon it in terms of the outcome and the standards used to evaluate your progress. And then rate at the end, rate your level of satisfaction with what you have submitted. They will, after the instructors have rated their work, they'll be able to anonymously see the ratings and the comments that instructors have given and consider revising or improving upon what they have submitted. Here's the screen for self-evaluation. Pretty simple. I'm ready, I'm not ready, I'm very ready to do this outcome. Then they submit documents, links, images, text fields, OEmbed. Each artifact has its own section. When they add a document, they select it. This is pretty standard. It must say that there is one limitation of LTI. The current technological status of the IMS LTI specs does not allow us to access Sakai resources. So students are uploading documents from their desktop. We have worked mightily on solving this problem, and we're waiting for technology to catch up with the needs. Students can add images, they can add links, they can add text fields, and all the while we're asking them to tell why and how they created this item and reflect upon the degree to which it addresses the outcome. And they can add playable multimedia via YouTube, Vimeo, SlideShare, or any number of outside resources, or perhaps inside the institution resources. We encourage students not to skip the documentation and reflection. It's tempting to bypass that, but the goal is to convince the viewers, the evaluators, of the value of that evidence by providing details on how did you produce it and why does it address the outcome. The external and internal evaluators will be evaluating at specific times of the year at NBTS. And they have been encouraged to see assessment as having a different purpose than grades for courses. These criteria are not ABCD grades. They are evaluations of the degree to which the students have met the standard. And they have to do with the quality of the graduate program, not with the student's grade in the course. Dashboards help students view their work in one glance. So for each year, they can see all the learning outcomes for their graduate program, how many artifacts they've submitted, and what ratings they received on the internal and external evaluations. Reports are for the administrators of the program, and they aggregate ratings across students by program year. And what they do is they collect only the internal evaluation ratings for each learning outcome. That was the choice of NBTS. They're a little sketchy on the degree to which the external evaluators will actually come through, and they didn't want to skew the data by having missing evaluations. These reports can then be exported to Excel for further analysis. Karuta does the initial analysis. For example, it will provide averages for students across the ratings within their particular outcome for a particular year. But the kinds of really complex things that Excel can do are better done in Excel. Now, the showcase portfolio is something that at NBTS the student owns entirely. Showcase portfolios can be shared with anyone in the world or with people at your own institution. This is an example of a home page of a showcase portfolio. You'll see it's been customized to display the colors and the photo of NBTS. Here's another page in a showcase portfolio. It's got a block design that allows different rows of different content, and the viewer can click on the content to better access it, whether it's a video or an image or a text field or a document. So the students start out by customizing their welcome page with an introductory text, and then they customize their profile with hopefully a picture of their actual self, their name, optionally their gender and birth date, and their email, and then another About Me opportunity. Now the slashed I feature allows students to decide to not share something like their birth date if they prefer not to share it. In Karuta, the students could be given complete freedom for what to produce and share, or varied freedom depending on how the institution wants to guide their showcase experience. For this institution, they have offered 4 customizable pages, which give the student complete freedom, including not to show the page to others if they wish to hide it. And they can add all of the same content to those customizable pages. Sharing is a simple process of clicking several buttons, inserting an email address. The viewer with the email address then receives an email like the one in the corner, the right-hand bottom corner, where so-and-so wants to share with you a part of a portfolio. You click the C button and you are taken to a browser page with the entire portfolio that the user wanted to share. The user also receives an email receipt of that request. So I want to do a demo now, a live demo, but I'll say there are ways to find out more about Karuta. You can go to our project website, karutaproject.org. You can go to Apereo and find us on an Apereo project page. You can go to our commercial affiliate ePortfolio for an actual demo site that you can log into and experience. You can follow us on Google Plus or on Twitter. You can download our code at GitHub, or you can ask us questions at our project email or by emailing Jacques or myself directly. So now we're going to do a demo of Karuta, and I will first show you. Here is a LAMP consortium page for Sakai. You log in. Now, I have very limited access because I'm not a LAMP institution. So this is a sample site. For NBTS, all the sites have ePortfolios in them, but you would go to a sample to the site you wish to go to and click on the ePortfolios tool, and then you would see Karuta. I do not have any portfolios in the Karuta implementation in LAMP, so we're going to go to another way of accessing Karuta. So I'm going to log in as my colleague Terry Smith, who has a sample. Okay, now Terry is an administrator, so she sees all the student portfolios. She can't operate in them, she can't change them, but she can view the student portfolios for students who started in 2006, 2008, etc., for different programs. She has some portfolios that she can use to demo, and here is her assessment portfolio. And here we see a customized welcome page. We can see dashboards for different years, and she doesn't have any data in her portfolio, but this is an example of the dashboard. And then she can see different years of learning outcomes. So here's learning outcome 2 for the junior year. We view the actual outcome at the top here. This is a seminary, so it has to do with religious content. The instructions can be opened or closed. The artifact can be submitted by adding a document, an image, a URL, or an OEmbed or a text. There's a technical reason why these two aren't showing up on her portfolio, but the students all have them. The self-evaluation screens come up to evaluate, and then Terry does not have permission to evaluate herself, so we'll have to go to an evaluator's portfolio. Let me go back to, I think she has one with actual content. I don't think there's any content in this, so we'll skip that part. Let me go to we're running out of time, so let me go to this is, no, I would have to log in as an instructor. I'm sorry. Yes, I am logged in as Terry here, so we will go to, this is Jeanette's portfolio, and Terry has permission to evaluate. If Jeanette had content, Terry has permission to use the rubric to evaluate any content that Jeanette had submitted. So you see that Terry, when logging in, has her own student portfolio, and then she's assigned as an evaluator on 2 other portfolios and can go in and select the item that she wishes to select in order to evaluate that portfolio. Okay, I'm going to go back to home. And now we'll look at Terry's showcase portfolio. So here's her homepage that you've already seen. Here's her profile. She chose not to write about me, so it's pretty sparse. However, her actual pages are quite rich. She's tried some text, some images, so it has some videos later on. We'll look at the next page. So you can caption your photos, you can, let's go deeper into presentations. Here we have a presentation on a video. These are all videos. And here we have her resume, which you can click on to expand to see the entire content. So it's relatively simple, but very doable for students at any level of experience to fill out their assessment portfolio and then possibly to use some of that content from the assessment portfolios for their showcase portfolio. Karuta is a very cost-effective implementation. The simpler it is, the easier it is to implement, but all kinds of things can be done in Karuta. So I'll again review by saying you can create different portfolios for different programs. These portfolios can be outcome-based or criteria-based or otherwise organized. Dashboards can be assembled to keep track of student work. Reports can be generated. And Terry has a report portfolio that we don't have time to show you. And the students can also have showcase portfolios to use for their own purposes. Oh, what we didn't do was show you how, see if I have this right. Yeah. Here is the share, there's the share button. Sharing is as simple as clicking 2 buttons and filling in an email. So I'm going to share this with me. It tells me that it's been sent. And if I go to my email, let's see, Terry Smith wants to share with you a part of a portfolio. So I can see it by clicking on see. And there is Terry's portfolio, which I think there is one bug here. Let me see. Oh, yes. 2.2 solves this bug. 2.2 is coming out in November, and we are in November, and NBTS is going to be upgraded momentarily. In fact, I have a QA session with NBTS happening in the next hour. So let's go back to our session, and I think, Matt, it is time to ask if there are questions.
Yes, indeed. If anyone wants to type them in, I'm happy to give them voice. I was wondering about a public view of that showcase you had there, so I might just ask, is there a public view without the invite, while others think of what they might want to ask?
I think that's a very good question. It is something I've been asking for. We don't have it yet. There are only a few features that we don't have yet. That's one of them, but I will be pressing for it in the next release. What you're asking for, Matt, is a URL that students could share with anybody. That's just a public view that anybody could go to if they had the URL.
Yes. And I'm only asking because I clearly paid attention and perceived that it wasn't there.
Yep. Good for you. How about somebody else? Anybody else?
Yeah, if you type into the chat, then I can give that voice.
Well, Matt, do you have another question?
I was wondering what a prototype process typically kind of looks like from your experience as the lead for Karuta or your Three Canoes experience. What's a prototype like for the typical institution?
Well, we've been especially working with smaller institutions that don't have a robust technical staff. And so the Three Canoes design process is to do a needs assessment with the head functional person and work with them on developing the steps that I outlined for how to create portfolios. So the institutional person, if they've engaged in a contract with Three Canoes, would be supplying all of the needs, and we would be building according to their needs. So that's one way to do it, is to customize with a commercial partner so that you're in charge of the design, but somebody else is doing the work. Another way would be to learn to design Karuta yourself. It's all using JavaScript, so there is no programming involved. But one would have to have somewhat of a technical bent in order to do that. Another way is to acquire a template from one of the things that Jacques has produced or a sister institution and slightly tweak it and then use it for your own purposes. Karuta is really good at exporting templates and making them useful in other instances of Karuta. Those are the primary ways. What we're recommending is then that after you've established your portfolio process, like the one you saw at NBTS, that you try it out with several students in order to tweak any remaining issues and go through a QA process just to make sure it's working well before you move to production. Does that answer your questions, Matt?
It does. I'll just add in, and typically, where does the technology sit as far as a physical server in those kinds of small institution ones?
Let's see. You mean where is it hosted? Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah.
I can also show you what the technology looks like. Hosting is something that you can host it on your own server, or you can, I'm trying to type a password while I speak, or Three Canoes is now hosting at what we believe is a very reasonable rate for institutions that prefer not to host it themselves. This is what the underlying technology looks like. So all of these components go together to create the NBTS implementation. These batch models allow users to be uploaded and portfolios to be created for each user. Then there's a report process that has a couple components. And then there are rubrics. They have 3 different very complex rubrics at NBTS, so we needed some components for rubrics. And then there's showcase portfolio components And then there are 3 different programs that have 3 different designs for portfolios. So we have different years in different programs, dashboards, and years in the Doctor of Ministry, the Master of something, and the MDiv program. So turned out NBTS had a pretty complicated situation. If you're looking at something simpler, you would have nowhere near as many components. But all of these can be wrapped up into a project and exported into somebody else's implementation if NBTS cared to share.
Cool. Well, I would expect that any place called New Brunswick Theological Seminary, not located in New Brunswick, would be a complicated situation.
I think they have a really slick prototype going. It is simple for everybody concerned, easy for the students, easy for the evaluators, maybe a little more complex for the reports for the administrator, but they're going to get the data they want, and in the process, their students are going to become more self-aware of their learning.
And I think that sounds to me like an amazing summary of what Karuta can do. I'll pause one last time for a quick slam of the keyboard in the chat room. But otherwise, thank Janice for his presentation, and Jock in absentia. I think I certainly learned a lot, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session, and I'll wish you a great rest of the virtual conference.
Thank you, Matt, for presiding, and thanks everyone for attending. And get in touch with us if you're interested in knowing more. Bye, everyone.